sign on.
All right, sorry everyone. We had a little lighting issue. It's dark outside, so we moved it inside. We'll pick it back up.
So looking at our wild card teams, we have Milwaukee and Arizona. So Arizona. Cool. Ultimately, we're talking about a one-game winner take all. I think that Arizona's the better team. Personally, I do like what Milwaukee's done as far as adding new pieces. They still have some pretty good pitching. The team that's been there before always is a little bit more attractive to me, though.
I agree. And I look at a team that's that proven ace.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially in a one-game playoff. So I think we're all in agreement to see Arizona taking the wild card game.
So now we're looking at the Yankees
versus the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah. So
and we're looking at
The Mariners.
the Mariners versus the Yankees. And
I mean, that's an easy choice.
honestly, the way Severino's been pitching, being that clear-cut number one.
Those poor Mariners, they deserve a better fate. But I think you're looking at a definite. I think we're looking at another repeat of last year, where both the top seeds won their wild card game.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is unfortunate for a team like Pittsburgh, where they constantly were getting bounced, and they were the better team in that wild card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Series. But,
so now with those seeding, we have our number 4 team. So we have up here, we have our number 1, Chicago Cubs.
Going
Cubs
off
Diamondbacks
against the Arizona Diamondbacks.
And then we have our
Dodgers.
going up versus. That's a repeat of last year as well.
Dodgers Nets.
Oops.
Isn't it interesting how few teams get into the playoffs in baseball?
Oh yeah,
it's very exclusive to make the playoffs in baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we're looking over here. We have our number 1 Boston
versus Yankees. Whew.
I think
those tickets will definitely be very expensive for every game in that series, which is more than likely going to go 7 games. I think.
Definitely.
Yeah. Houston.
Honestly, that's going to be just.
I'm looking forward to getting into that one.
That would be such a fun series to watch.
Awesome. Cool. So, first matchup we have Chicago Cubs versus Arizona Diamondbacks. Thoughts?
I mean, you do look at a team like the Cubs. They have that experience. They've won it all before. They have that experience. They're only a few years removed from that World Series championship. I look at the Diamondbacks. They are that team that hasn't made that move that's going to put them over the top. They kind of are, in my opinion, the same team they brought back last year for the most part.
And
minus JD Martinez.
Yeah, and think about it too. We're looking at second half predictions as they are right now, and the Diamondbacks haven't done anything to solidify themselves as not just a playoff contending team, but a division winning team.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you look at the Cubs being as well suited as they are, being the favorite in that game. So
I think
I would agree.
Agreed all around.
Awesome. So we'll just head down the way here because I know we want to touch up on that Yankees team. So we'll probably save that one for last.
Yeah.
We were looking at the Dodgers and the Nationals, and as much as it's hard to say as a Padres fan, the inconsistencies from the Nationals through the playoffs have just been atrocious. They have not had.
Yeah.
They haven't made it into it. Last year they got bounced by the Dodgers as well.
They're going to go down in history as the LA Clippers, the Cincinnati Bengals, those great regular season teams that.
Well, fortunately enough for them, they play against the Dodgers, who do the same thing anyway. So,
but the Dodgers usually win a series or two.
Oh, definitely.
So, obviously last year they came just shy of winning it all last year.
Yeah.
So
we'll bounce straight over to the right here, Houston and Cleveland. Houston, I still think, is one of the top 2 or 3 teams in baseball. I think you look at the addition, Jarrett Cole to that starting rotation with Justin Verlander already up there.
I think Houston has it figured out, from the bullpen to the bats to the lineup.
All the way through.
Through and through, they're consistent. They play baseball. They win games. And especially in the playoffs, they showed last year that they can go through that entire series and not weather.
And this is a team that was built together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the pieces they've added with Verlander and Cole, that's different going into pitching.
But Dallas Keuchel, I mean, he's been a stud.
No scrub. Yeah. I mean,
Lance McCullers, Charlie Morton.
Absolutely. I mean, they have 5 solid pitchers. Cleveland, again, I think that, with the addition of Brad Hand and Simber from the Padres, that's
they shored up their weakness.
They did, but they're it's a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they have the worst bullpen. They have, and we're looking at today, they give up the most home runs, and they have the 29th worst, or the 29th ERA and
the
opponent's batting average.
Worst bullpen ERA and worst, or 29th ranked opponent's batting average.
Yeah. So I think
with
that
a
alone.
With a bullpen like that going against a lineup like Houston has, you look at.
And bullpens are what?
Alone, you watch the All-Star game and you see that, you have All-Star pitchers pitching against these top 2 guys and they can't handle it.
Absolutely.
So going into the playoffs, a weak bullpen, that's an easy matchup.
Yeah, especially when you have 5 starters that are proven.
Yeah.
I think that the deeper you get into your bullpen was where your weaknesses really start to show because we talked about that earlier. It's the job for the bullpen to throw strikes, not to give up home runs. So the mecca of all matchups. New York Yankees and the Red Sox.
I will say, just looking at this board straight up, come October, come playoff time, if you're going to watch baseball, you're going to just watch American League. Because these matchups are going to be so much fun to watch, and
nobody cares about what happens between these two teams.
Until it gets.
I think this would be a pretty good one, but this one would be
depends
definitely.
on which Strasburg shows up.
Yeah,
ultimately.
Yeah. But you're also seeing the last of maybe Bryce Harper ever as a national.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that would be attractive to watch. This, to me, honestly, I could see this one going maybe 5 games.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but honestly, I could see these 2 teams flipping coming out of the West.
The Dodgers being, totally.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, and honestly, that's the worst thing that could happen to either of these teams because the Cubs have Washington's number, and the Dodgers know how to beat the Diamondbacks. So, again, like you're saying, that could be flip-flop easily. Totally agree.
Yeah.
But,
coming into the series, I hate to say it because such a Yankees fan, I think they have the better bullpen. I think they have the better bats, but I think Boston knows how to get it done this year.
I
think
I'm going to actually go opposite.
I was actually too.
And it's funny with you being a Yankee fan. I see where you're coming from, but the Yankees have had Boston's number. They might have the better record, but they have the better win percentage against this team.
Honestly, I was just trying to not make Brandon feel bad by thinking of that. I just didn't want to argue that much.
I just think that the bats in this series, I mean, you have huge power-hitting right-handed hitters. And you have David Price, you have, Chris Sale, who are 2 huge lefties.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, they haven't matched up well against the Yankees all year. Again, you're looking at a team that can destroy the rest of the division, and their one problem that they've run into this whole year has been the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, the last matchup that they went up against them,
2-1.
2-1.
2-3, 2-3.
I think, to me personally, I think both have phenomenal bats. Probably the best bats in all baseball.
JD Martinez, Mookie Betts, no scrubs.
Stanton, both those teams, their outfields are just arguably the best in baseball.
It'll be interesting to see what this team does with the trade deadline, addressing some of the needs. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think, especially modern-day baseball, the starters don't go very long. So I look at a team that has a better bullpen, they're generally going to win the playoff series.
And the
Yankees have the best bullpen in all baseball.
In the American League, though, starting pitchers do go longer. They have that luxury.
But they still have short leashes now.
Yeah,
so
I think the leash is longer than that of a team in the National League. So I feel like starting pitcher's going to go a long ways. But I see how that would play into Boston.
But the Yankees wouldn't need to.
Yeah.
Because they have such a great bullpen
that
if their starter gives up a few runs early in the game, they can pull him. They can afford to pull him and still have the success in winning that game.
It'll be interesting to see with players like Noah Syndergaard and Tyson Ross and some of these other players who are bottom of the line starters on a team like the Yankees if they end up trading for them or not. But I ultimately think that the Yankees end up winning.
I think that's why last year, that's the only reason why the Yankees lost to Houston.
I think it's unanimous. Yankees are going to get it.
But I think that's why Houston had the Yankees number last season because they just had the bullpen depth.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think...
Well, that and Aaron Judge was striking out every single at-bat.
But I think the Yankees starters have played much better this year. I think Severino played well last year.
He played very well last year, but
this year he's
shown up.
He's put himself in that elite status as an elite starter in the league. So I as much as I hate to admit it, I think the Yankees are probably advancing. Actually, I think the Yankees are actually my not to play my but
all right. So now we're looking at the championship round. Houston Astros. Awesome. So we have our NLDS. Or CS, sorry. ALCS. We'll start over in the National League. Chicago Cubs versus Los Angeles Dodgers. Opinions, Brandon.
I think the Dodgers are going to go to World Series again.
So,
honestly.
The question being more, if you think the Dodgers are going to win, what do you think stands out to this team more than the Cubs?
So I look at the Dodgers. They obviously were there last year. They have proven that they're among the elite teams in the league. I look at obviously having a pitcher like Clayton Kershaw. Obviously he doesn't have necessarily the best postseason history, but he's played better in recent years. You also have the addition of a guy like Manny Machado, who's arguably one of the best players in all of baseball. And he's filling an area of need. Obviously, they're missing Corey Seager at shortstop. But honestly, I think Seager. I think Machado's an upgrade to Seager personally.
Definitely
at this stage. So
nothing against Corey Seager, but Machado is a top 3 player in all of baseball.
Certainly,
arguably. You can throw Nolan Arenado in that mix as well.
Yeah.
Both similar players.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he's for sure a top 5, but arguably a top 3 player.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dean, opinions?
I'd have to agree. I think the Dodgers, if they get this far, they're going to be the ones to take it, just from experience. Chicago has the bats and they have the defense, but I think they lack talent, or they lack in their starting rotation.
And their relief pitching, too. You have Brandon Morrow as their closer right now.
Yeah. Not saying that they're a bad...
No,
I love they're bad.
I know.
This series going 7 games.
Yes.
I
would honestly, for me personally, I think the Cubs are a far superior team to the Dodgers because they've won a championship together, and obviously you're looking at a team that just came off of losing Game 7 in the World Series. But you have Chris Bryant, who's a reigning National League MVP. You have Anthony Rizzo, who's a 3 or 4-time All-Star. Javier Baez, who's become a staple in this league as well. Mm-hmm. John Lester has won multiple World Series championships. But depending on what they do with their starting rotation, I think is going to play a factor into this series. Personally, I'll mark Dodgers. I ultimately think if this is what it comes down to, the Cubs are winning this series. The bats that they have consistently, the ability that they have to move runners on base, the Dodgers to me are a one-trick pony. They are a home run hitting team.
Well, yeah, we talked about it a little bit, that they're all about the launch angle. Yeah. That's their buzzword. And I think that...
And that's not a hard thing to beat. And launch angles aren't a hard thing to beat.
But they're a hard thing to pitch to.
Not necessarily. It depends on the style of pitcher. John Lester's a perfect person when it comes to launch angle because he throws a nasty 2-seam fastball that he keeps low in the zone that's hard for hitters to get an angle on. And launch angle is all about...
But also, that's one game out of a best-of-7 series.
That's true.
And my other thing is you have the argument with Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw has been atrocious in the playoffs his entire career.
He played
so you might have again, but they lost the World Series. I'm talking about a championship-winning team that has won the 7-game series versus a team that has lost the 7-game series, and not to mention the team that won the 7-game series on the road.
But not only that, the Cubs lineup. If you look back at the year that they did win it, they haven't made very many changes.
Same lineup. Al Morrow Jr. has come in. He's been a huge player on that team.
They lost to the Dodgers last year, though.
So absolutely. I'm not saying.
What did they do to make themselves better than last year, Steve?
No, that's why I made that. I said that before. It depends on what they do with the starting rotation because they're running out of options. They don't need a ton of. I can't remember what his name is. Starling, who was the other.
Ross Stripling.
Stripling, yeah, he was the other All-Star pitcher on this team. They have Henley Jansen.
Max Muncy stepped up. He's been huge for
But
them.
again, and that's what I mean. I'm talking about players, power-hitting players that hit low for average.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about a best-of-7 series.
Mm-hmm.
I think players like Kyle Schwarber, who's become a lot better baseball player than he was 2 years ago, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, and then the big one, too, Addison Russell, a far superior player than he was 2 years ago when they won the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I mean, the hardest thing in baseball or in any sport is to go back-to-back in a series. And I think last year the Cubs alone tried to just go off of what they did. So I'm okay with putting the Dodgers based off the fact that they're willing to make.
Well, I'd almost retract this pick because we're banking a lot that the Dodgers are their moves. The move that they made is going to pay off into the playoffs.
Yeah,
that they're going to be a different team going into that second half. Whereas the Cubs have been consistent. They've been
and they got hot right.
And
they got
last
hot
season
right.
They got hot at the end of the season.
Well, I'm referring to right before the All-Star break.
Okay,
the Cubs won
even if last season they were a good second half team.
Yeah.
So, that momentum going into the playoffs
Totally.
plays huge. So we're banking a lot picking the Dodgers, thinking that
Manny Machado's going to come in.
Machado's going to bring them up.
And the only reason I'm okay with making this pick right now is because they're obviously showing they're willing to go after and get more pieces, where the Cubs have been a little more quiet. There's not as many starting pitchers out there as there are players like Manny Machado or Mike Moustakas, and people that can come in and make an impact right away.
Well, let's move over to ALCS.
All right, cool. So we have.
I think I think the Yankees are taking this. You look at the series. You looked at last year's series, and the one thing that was different, the bullpens were pretty even. I will say the Astros had a better bullpen.
And the game went 7 games, correct?
Yeah. And the Yankees added depth. Really, the only thing that they beat them on was the long ball, was home runs. And because
the Astros went crazy last offseason. I don't see that.
The Yankees went crazy, too, in that series. And I think the only difference is you add Giancarlo Stanton, and that's another bet that you have to pitch.
There was one guy, Justin Verlander, was the difference.
Yeah.
He will be in the series again. However,
the odds of him going lights out again.
And I totally agree with you. I was just going to say.
Well, not only that, but Lance McCullers Jr. was lights out last.
Yeah, and I mean that's a guy that's a bottom of the rotation player.
Charlie Morton, he was World Series MVP, wasn't he?
Yeah. No.
No.
It was
Springer.
You're right.
Yeah.
But he won Game 7 though.
Yeah, totally.
And he won Game 7 of the ALCS too.
I don't know if those guys are going to be able to produce the same way. I think that the Yankees going forward, and again, we're banking off of a lot of what ifs. Mm-hmm. They have one of the best bullpens in baseball. I mean, from top to bottom, they really do. And you've said it since day one.
Yeah.
They have a phenomenal bullpen. Their starters, I mean, you're looking at CC Sabathia being a number 4 or 5 starter. He's no scrub still.
Yeah.
And he's been in these positions before. The whole story of the Houston Astros is phenomenal, but I really do think this is the Yankees' year. I think ultimately, Giancarlo Stanton being able to throw in people like Gary Sanchez, Gleyber Torres, top to bottom, they have the best lineup in baseball, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I
think we're all in agreement there. I think.
Yeah. All right. So now for the big kahuna.
All right. So for this one, let's do the winner and the length of the series. I don't think this is going 7.
Honestly, I think this is the series we almost saw last year. Obviously, because I think these are the same Final Four that were there last year.
Yeah.
And I think this is just a different outcome. I think you got to go with the Yankees, as much as I hate to admit it. As being
get back to those early 2000s here.
As much as I can't stand the Yankees, being a longtime Padres fan, dreading that '98 series.
You're 7, Brandon, but that's okay.
I was 8 years old at the time, and that was really my first exposure to sports, and so that's why the hatred for the Yankees runs deep. But I honestly, those bats are just so hard to keep down, and that relief
and I don't
pitching is just phenomenal.
I'll let you go ahead.
And Luis Severino's just been on another level. So, I mean, honestly, I don't think their starting rotation's the best. That's obviously something that I personally think that they would be smart to at least find a solid starter, at least they can go after Syndergaard. I think this series going much quicker than 7.
And with the Yankees too, the nice part about the bullpen depth that they have is their starting pitchers have been on a short leash.
Yeah.
When you have a phenomenal relief corps like the Yankees, you can afford to do something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that by acquiring a player like Noah Syndergaard will help them. But ultimately, with the way that their bullpen's played, it's not a priority in this series. I don't believe. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Dean.
No, I was going to agree with what Brandon said. That overall, I think the Yankees are just a better ball club than the Dodgers. And I think that's what's going to show. And they have the bullpen depth, which we've mentioned is huge going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
The starters have, each one of them has shown that they can be lights out on any given day. I think that the difference in this series is going to be if Dylan Betances can show up and he can pitch like he's been pitching and he can be consistent. I think the only thing that's going to stop the Yankees from winning this is if the Yankees get inside their own head.
Yeah.
By the way, I just want to make a comment. How crazy is this series? You take this back, 75 years ago. You see this matchup.
Totally.
That's such old school baseball.
Yeah, it's old school baseball.
And for me personally, I the reason that I think that the Yankees win this series isn't necessarily taking anything away from the Dodgers. I think the Yankees have built their core from within and pieced together players very similar to the way that the Cubs did when they won the World Series. They built from within. They drafted players well. They pieced together a young core when they needed to, with the addition of Anthony Rizzo, with the addition of John Lester. But with the Dodgers, again, I think you're looking at a team that banks off the long ball so much. And I can see them squeaking a couple games away from the Yankees at home because of that short porch in right and left field. But ultimately, the Yankees from top to bottom are a much better ball club. And I think if you look at this as well, even if this is the Yankees or it's the Astros or it's Boston, I just don't think that the National League is winning the World Series this year.
I will just say that, going into spring training and getting that notification that Aaron Boone's taken over the Yankees was, honestly, it was a little bit of a shock to me. Not so much in the fact that it's like that's who they decided to go with, but just the fact that, this guy was such a great ball player in our childhood growing up.
Yeah.
And now he's coaching a team. It's like that's pretty neat. And I would love to see him take a team like this to the World Series.
Absolutely,
and win it.
The thing that's crazy to me is that you're looking at the Yankees coming in here as a wild card team, and we've talked about their holes.
We've seen it before. Wild card teams taking.
Well, and not from.
I mean, they almost did it last time. Last season too.
Away from the point that I'm talking about, I just mean that this team is one or two starting pitchers away from taking this division. Because the Red Sox don't have a lot of holes. I think they're as good as they're going to be.
They're pretty finished.
Yeah, and I think maybe a relief pitcher possibly, but I think their lineup and their bullpen and their starting rotation is where they want it to be. And if the Yankees can go out there and grab another player, they're a better baseball club than the Red Sox. So this might even look totally different in another 60 games.
A week or so.
Because, again, their lineup, and they could use a lot of help with their starting rotation. If they can shore that up, this is looking a lot different. I mean, we're talking about a team that's going to go through, if we're looking at the Red Sox, or the Yankees at number one, playing maybe a Seattle. I mean, it might be a lot less competitive series if this ends up happening. So, the way that this panned out, it looks nice. I mean, the Dodgers and the Cubs playing each other, it's a wonderful series. The Yankees and their Astros.
So, what do you guys think this is going to go?
If this, I would say 6.
I think
5.
I think it's 7. Honestly,
Yeah.
I don't think the Dodgers are any slouches. Even though I do think
my only problem is banking off the fact that Kershaw gets a win. The right-handed sluggers that they have on this team are going to dominate him.
I think the stigma of him being a bad, postseason pitcher ended last year. He pitched pretty well last year.
Pretty well though. I mean, we're talking about a career.
Oh no, he's obviously he's one of the.
I don't think it's a stigma at all. I think it's a fact that he doesn't pitch well in the playoffs. I mean, you're talking about
a fluke every now and then.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Get some overall.
I mean, looking at LeBron James and how many finals he lost 2 finals before he ever won one, and people were saying he wasn't the guy. He wasn't the guy. Clayton Kershaw has been atrocious in the playoffs. He played well last year, but a lot of those games didn't ride on how well he was pitching. I mean, they had a lot of help last year.
I think their bats aren't any slouches either, though. They honestly have great bats, and there's no. They have a top 5 bat in all of baseball. They just picked him up.
Honestly, I totally agree with that.
You have Justin Turner. He's back in their lineup,
and he's been playing terribly this year.
But he still provides that leadership to the team. So, I mean, honestly, I do think it's going to go 7. I know you guys are thinking it's probably going to go a little quicker, but
all right. Well, future Dean, future Brandon, future Ryan. We picked the Yankees. 5-7-6. Everyone else out there listening, 3 Amigos in a podcast.
We
gotta go record right now. It's getting a little late.
We're about to step into our podcast. We're going to tell you on our podcast to go check out this video.
Yeah. So here we go. See you guys in a little bit.